Just an update there to Caroline's report. A federal judge just today blocked President Trump's plan to push out federal employees by offering them financial incentives known as these deferred resignations. The ruling came hours before the midnight deadline just today for workers to apply for the deferred resignation, which has been commonly described as a buyout, a federal buyout. The district judge there in Boston did not rule today on the merits of the idea. He scheduled a hearing for Monday afternoon, so essentially buying this idea possibly some more time here. What we want to do right now, though, is bring into the conversation our friend there at Barron's, ideas editor, Matt Peterson. He joins me with the latest. And Matt, thanks for being with us here. I know you've been following all of this very, very closely. I just want to start, though, from the basics. You and I had a conversation during the campaign about the idea of DOGE, and now we're seeing the actions DOGE is implementing. Let's start, though, from the bottom here. Where does DOGE get its statutory authority from, and what type of federal worker is Elon Musk?
Well, I think we're going to find out some of these legal questions as we go on here because these judges are very interested. But Elon Musk is what's called a special government employee. It's a kind of temporary status that is used to bring in advisors to the government on a temporary basis. And it makes it a little bit easier for people with complicated finances, someone like the world's richest man, Elon Musk, to help out for a little while. So Elon is, officially an employee of the government, but there are a lot of open questions about his remit and sort of what parts of the government he's able to access.
Yeah, I only wanted to ask this because, DOGE is such a new entity. Do we have any idea how many people are working for DOGE, where they have set up shop in Washington, how often they meet? Is it a 9 to 5? Just those basic questions I have.
We don't really have those answers.
Okay.
Certainly, they're not coming from the White House. I've asked them, and they haven't been forthcoming on that. It seems people in the media have identified, a few dozen employees of DOGE. They've branched out into different agencies. There's, a DOGE group at the Department of the Treasury. There's different ones at different agencies, and then there's Elon, who's sort of overseeing the whole effort. But I think that's one of the things that's driving some of this anxiety about DOGE is that we just don't hear a lot from them directly other than Elon's tweets. So it's not super clear exactly what they're up to.
Okay, so to your point, if we don't know what they're up to, we are left with a lot of this reporting in great outlets like Barron's and others to tell us what they are up to and who is doing all of it here. And we've gotten some reporting about DOGE's specific access when it comes to not only taxpayer information, but information on the federal workforce. Do they have the authority to access that information? And should they, if they have it?
Well, this is a question specifically that's going to get litigated.
Okay.
There is a court case ongoing in the DC Circuit over, exactly sort of what access they're allowed to have to federal workers. There are privacy laws and cybersecurity laws that prevent some of this data from being made accessible. I honestly, I don't really see what the point is of Elon getting access to lots of people's personal information. I doubt he really wants it, but we'll see. What it seems like this is going towards is that he's trying to collect as much data as he can from the federal government so that he can do analytics on it with artificial intelligence. He has a big AI project through his organization, XAI, and he seems to think that this will be a way that he can identify some inefficiencies in government.
Okay, so just today, 12 U.S. states in Connecticut, that's where they're originating this lawsuit, filed suit challenging DOGE access to personal data contained within government payment systems here. I mean, have we seen evidence that DOGE operators have accessed that information and have used that information to whatever end?
The Treasury Department and Secretary Scott Bessent say that they have not. They do not have access to people's information. There are a couple of people who are part of DOGE who have the ability to review the system from the outside. We don't know much more than that exactly what they are allowed to do. So unfortunately, some of these answers are just not really forthcoming yet.
Okay, so to your point that some of these answers aren't forthcoming yet, is that why, and I'm going to be pretty frank here, that Democrats have really set their hair on fire over some of these actions in the last 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, we don't really know what's smoke and what's fire here,
Okay.
right? There's a lot of people who are very upset, and if Elon is like downloading everybody's social security numbers on a thumb drive to take home, that's not great, you know. But it's not clear that he really wants to do that, right? Again, this is the problem. This opacity, this fact that people just don't know means that anything that we learn about this seems like a scandal and seems like a huge problem. And it's alienating people, unfortunately, that are going to be part of the government for a long time. Whether or not you like Democrats, it's hard to do a lot without bipartisan support, and doing stuff, the big picture fixing of government that Elon said he wanted to do in the first place, is going to be really hard doing it just through the executive branch and just through one party.
So is this effort by Doge to find parts of the federal government to cut corners, to save costs, to decrease the deficit, decrease the debt, what have you here? Is it being done in an effective, systematic way, or somewhat of an ad hoc, chaotic way?
Right now, it certainly seems ad hoc and chaotic. It seems like Elon said, in fact, that he got rid of USAID, the Agency for International Development, because he started looking at it and he didn't like it. Right? That's not a particularly systematic way to think about the government. It's not, the biggest sort of source of costs for the federal government by a long stretch, right? So he does seem to have a plan here. He's, working his way up towards these bigger agencies. Maybe he's just trying to learn small and start there. But this, the way that they're going about it, this one sort of agency at a time, uh, that might be fine, except that he seems to be making enemies at every step of the road, and that's going to make this really hard when it comes time to kind of put all the pieces together at the end.
Yeah, of course. Doge was created by an executive order. That's where it finds its authority here. But we're seeing these clashes now with Congress, with congressionally appropriated monies and funds here that, from what I understand, some have been put on pause. And to your point, we may see this being fought in the courts for a really, really long time. I mean, we're just in week 3 of Trump 2.0 here. Are these the battles they want to have right now?
I think that's got to be the question Donald Trump is asking himself, because wasn't clear at the outset that he really signed up for everything that Elon is doing. He says that he supports it and he's clearing Elon's decisions, but I suspect that if this continues to sort of generate scandal and outrage all across the country day after day, that might weigh on the president, and he might choose to ask Elon to work differently or to step aside. We'll see. But this is a huge political story, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Do you anticipate that Democrats might subpoena Musk before whatever relevant committee to offer some more sunlight on what DOGE is doing?
Democrats might have to wait until 2026 to get their subpoenas in. There was an effort today by a congressional committee to try to subpoena him. The vote failed. They didn't get enough members supporting this move to subpoena Musk, which just goes to show how hard it would be for Democrats to actually sort of haul him in front of Congress. I suspect he may show up there sooner or later. There's a lot of people interested in what he's going on. But, for now, the political side here that's opposing him really doesn't have a lot of power beyond sort of, setting their hair on fire even more, generating a lot of outrage and frustration to try to draw attention to this. That's pretty much the most they can do, and try to sort of drive Trump crazy in the process.
Right. I was going to ask you, I mean, how effective or ineffective right now are the Democrats in combating some of these moves? I mean, here on Live Now, we've been showing some of these protests. We were in one live about this time last night outside the Treasury Department, outside the Labor Department. We've heard from Democratic lawmakers. Is it having an effect or not? Or are people ignoring it? Is it falling on deaf ears?
I don't think that the political involvement here from the Democrats is doing very much. The party is really a step behind. They've had a hard time sort of coming up with a message that they want to get out there. But the stuff that I think is going to be consequential in determining whether this goes forward is stuff like this. The story today that we heard from the Wall Street Journal, that they found the Twitter account of one of these people who had access to Treasury data, and he was posting what seemed like very racist, xenophobic things on his Twitter account, and he resigned immediately. Right? That's just a straight up scandal that Trump doesn't need. Right? It doesn't help anybody for these kinds
But
of things
Matt,
to
where
happen.
where are those DOGE employees being curated from? I mean, how is DOGE, Musk, and others, how are they finding very young individuals to assist with this effort at DOGE? Do they have a security clearance? Have they gotten the background check? I think it's very difficult for, maybe viewers to kind of conceive of the DOGE headquarters, or are they all working in one room? Are they working 24 hours a day? It's very hard conceptually.
It is very hard conceptually. We can't see the whole picture. We're kind of feeling around in a dark room and trying to see it. No, no, there isn't really a DOGE headquarters. They have some office space in the federal government. Elon, I guess, was offered a tiny office in the West Wing and decided it was too small for him. So fair enough. But as far as the hiring goes, he put out a call, I think back in December after the election, saying, anybody who wants to come work long hours with me and remake government, come sign up. And I guess he got some applications. He certainly has lots of young, enthusiastic, smart, tech savvy people who are interested in what he's doing and follow him closely on X. He's got a big movement behind him, right? And he's brought some of these folks in, but that's really about as much as we know about some of these people. This is part of the reason why this whole thing is driving people crazy, is that we just don't really have the basic answers, and it's not coming out of the organization itself.
But Musk, at the outset, before this was formed, he did vow full transparency, did he not?
He did vow full transparency. Doesn't really seem to be living up to that yet. I mean, he is saying a lot about what he's doing, right? He's
Yeah.
posting constantly on X. He's
Oh,
holding
yeah.
these live appearances. But what's the mission statement here, right? I mean, if you think about some of the basic things that have changed since they launched this, folks may remember that Elon wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal where he talked about, we're going to be cutting costs, we're going to try to trim the deficit, we're going to be outside volunteers to the government. Well, they're not outside volunteers to the government. They're government employees. What changed there? We don't really know. Where is the deficit cutting here, right? Elon says that he wants to get to $1 trillion in deficit cuts next year, but he's cutting things sort of $30 million, $40 million at a time. That's real money, but it's not going to get him where he needs to go. So the strategy kind of just doesn't add up here, right? And that's what's a little frustrating about this thing.
All right. Matt Peterson, we're going to have to leave it at that. Always a pleasure, Matt. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me on.